Hi everybody, this is Jeremiah from Frontier Precision. Today I'm going to go through and make a video on how to plan a mission for the Freefly Astro and the YellowScan Mapper Plus payload. In this mission we're going to be using Auterion Mission Control to plan the mission. I'm using it and doing the mission planning on the desktop app. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up Auterion Mission Control. After you open up Auterion Mission Control, this is the screen you get. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the top left, click right there, and then we're going to go to Plan. So once we go into the Plan menu or Settings screen, you'll notice that your launch point right here is going to come up. You can move this anywhere you want. I'm just going to leave that right there. So this is usually set when you turn on the drone. It will re-record your home point. But since I'm not connected to the drone right now and I'm just planning the mission, you can kind of move this wherever you want. So right now I'm going to intend to take off right here at that spot, and I'm going to fly this area right here. So what we'll do first is we're going to go and set out the pattern. So what we do first is we'll go to the left, we'll click Pattern, and we'll click Survey. Once we click that, we're going to need to draw our polygon boundary. We can do that by going to the bottom and selecting the polygon. And then now we're just going to grab the corners and move the boundary lines to the boundary of what we want to fly. You can go through and add more points to it if you want. You just click that little plus button right there and you can add more if you want. So I'll just do that just cuz. And then the next thing we're going to do after we draw our boundaries is we're going to go to the right side over here and take a look at our mission settings. Since we're going to be flying the YellowScan Mapper Plus, I have some cards that we made, and we can actually send these out to you if you would like. Goes over a bunch of standard settings and whatnot, and a little quick flashcard set for you. But on here, the two main things that I always look at the most are these two charts. The first one is going to tell me my swath width, and the second one is going to tell me my point density at a specific speed for a specific flight height. So for this area right here, I'm going to fly at, let's say, 70 meters AGL. So if I do 70 meters and I go up, my swath width is going to be about 100 meters swath width. So to get our 50% overlap, which is what we recommend, we're going to cut that in half. So we're going to fly at 70 meters and our side distance is going to be 50 meters. The other thing that we also take into account too is going to be our flight speed. So flying at 70 meters, if I go up, flying at 70 meters AGL, I'm going to go up and I'm going to fly at 10 meters a second. So that's going to be just under 250 points per square meter. So once we have our desired parameters that we want to fly this mission at, let's put them into here. So the first thing we're going to have to do is on this right side, we'll go to Mission Settings. In Mission Settings, this is where we set our flight speed. So to set our flight speed, we're going to have to go through and change this right here. The waypoint altitude is the first waypoint. So what it's going to do is this is where it's going to take off and it's going to get to this flight height. And once it gets to that flight height, it's going to start the mission. So if we're going to fly at 10 meters a second, which is going to be about 22 miles an hour, all we're going to do is we're going to take this, click and hold, and stick that to 22 miles an hour. Our home position altitude is set automatically right here. Actual position set by vehicle at flight time. So you don't have to worry about this right here. We're not going to deal with fences and we're not dealing with rally points. So the next thing we do after we set our flight speed, we're going to go to Survey, and we can see it defaults to the Sony A7R4 with the 24mm lens. Let's change that. We'll go to the camera button right here, and then we're just going to go to Manual, no camera specs. In general too, when it comes to flying with Lidar, you want to follow the terrain as best as you can. If you go to this mountain icon right here and you click vehicle follows terrain, what it'll do is it'll pull some DSM maps offline and use those to plan the mission, so you have your terrain following too. I'll usually leave these at default, and then the last setting right here is to save your preset. I'm not going to save these yet since I'm not done, but then I'm going to go right back to the mission planning, these lines right here. So for us, we said we're going to fly at 70 meters. So 70 meters. So 70 meters is going to be about 229 feet. So all we do is drag this over. $278 feet. And then we said our side distance or our swath width is 100 meters. But in order to get our 50% overlap, we're going to divide that 100 meters by 2. So 100 meters is 328 feet. So 328 feet divided by 2 is going to be 164. So our side spacing, we're going to change this to 164. $163.2 is good enough. The trigger distance doesn't mean anything. This is if it's going to trigger the camera. Since we're flying the Mapper Plus payload, it does not exactly speak to the drone itself. There's no triggering. It's kind of standalone. The Lidar scanner is just going to be flying and collecting data the entire time. So there is no trigger distance. If we go to pattern options right here, this is just to change the angle in which you want to fly your flight lines. I usually tend to fly the long ways as it's the most efficient and fastest way to collect the data. But again, depending on your situation and depending on what you're flying, you might want to change that orientation. When it comes to turnaround distance, I usually leave that as is. I usually have 0 issues with that. But again, it really depends on what you're doing at the time. If we want to change the turnaround distance, you can see it's the margins outside the boundary that you want it to fly. Usually in the end, you always just want to do more. The more the better. You don't want to ever leave the site not collecting enough information. So always just try and collect a little more. But besides the turnaround distance, we have options. We're not really going to check anything right here. Usually just leave that as is. And then at the bottom here, we have our statistics. So the area we're going to fly is going to be around, it's about 20 acres. The photo count doesn't really matter. Photo interval doesn't matter, and the trigger distance doesn't really matter too much. But if we look up here, the mission's going to take all of 3 minutes and 40 seconds with a maximum telemetry distance of 1,292 feet. But once we have all these set and all these settings are set, we can actually go back here and we can go save setting as new preset, and I can go standard Mapper Plus, click save. So now I have this preset of standard Mapper Plus. So now whenever I start playing a mission, all I'll have to do is I'll make sure I have my preset set, and then I'll have my altitude, line spacing, options, all of that stuff will be set for me already. But once we have this mission plan, there really isn't too much else to do. If I had this connected to the drone right now, there'd be a little button up here that says upload required. Right when you hit upload required, it will upload the mission to the drone. And then to fly and take off the mission, you'll just go to this button right here and you'll go to fly. One thing to take note is if you don't have a mission populated right here, it's because it's not on the drone. So once you upload it to the drone, it will appear on the fly screen, and then you'll see the mission pop up. But that was a pretty quick video on how to do a general mapping flight or mission planning for the YellowScan Mapper Plus and the Freefly Astro. So hopefully this helped you out. If you have any questions, comments, or anything, you can always reach out. You can reach us at uas@frontierprecision.com. And I hope to hear from you guys soon. Thank you.